World War I was a disaster, a byproduct of heavy nationalism and led by 4 years of aggressive expansion. With the buildup of resentment for expansionism to the assassination of an empire leader for freedom, World War I had many factors leading to the 4 years of fighting. Before World War I, a rapid buildup of military power across Europe went on, with countries such as Great Britain and France being the most powerful countries in the world, colonizing regions such as India, modern-day Vietnam, and North Africa. The cause of rising tension was mostly from the fact that many of these colonies were acquired through coercion. After they were acquired, they were controlled by their acquirers and exploited, making dissatisfaction common. As the countries continued expanding, tensions rose between their opposing empires, with Germany, Austria-Hungary, and the Ottoman Empire resenting Great Britain and France's success and joining forces, leading to the creation of the Allied and Central Powers during World War I. This is explained by Sidney B. Fay, American historian, with the quote, "Through the system of alliances, in one sense, tended to preserve peace, inasmuch as the members within one group often held their friends or allies in restraint for fear of becoming involved in war themselves. The system also made it inevitable that if war did come, it would involve all the great powers of Europe." The Balkans are connected to this expansionism, as the assassination of Archduke Ferdinand is always seen as the catalyst of the war, as he had been the heir to the Austro-Hungarian Empire, which at the time was the second largest country geographically in Europe and the third most populated. This assassination was carried out by a Serbian nationalist associated with the Black Hand by the name of Gavrilo Princip, as the group had a desire to free Bosnia and Herzegovina, which had been under Austro-Hungarian rule. The assassination set off the July Crisis, which was the month-long period after the Archduke's death, where countries debated on if the Serbian government had been involved and on the next actions they would take, such as war. A result of these debates were 10 demands from Austria-Hungary towards Siberia, including suppressing Austria-Hungary propaganda in Siberia, dissolving nationalist organizations, and allowing Austria-Hungary to participate in the investigation of the assassination, which Serbia declined all but two. As tensions rose, and as a result of Russia supporting Serbia, Austria-Hungary had waited to declare war until they received confirmation that Germany would support their cause, as they had feared Russian involvement would lead to its allies, France and Great Britain, to join as well. On July 5th, the German leader Kaiser Wilhelm II secretly pledged his support with a blank check assurance, which refers to a situation where one party promises financial and military support to another party without placing conditions or restrictions. After this, convinced that Austria-Hungary had been preparing for war, the Serbian government requested for Russian assistance and mobilized the Serbian army. On July 28th, Austria-Hungary had declared war on Serbia. World War I is considered to be a total war, meaning that it had four major parts: mobilization, refusal to compromise, the roles between soldiers and civilians, and total control over society. It included any and all resources available to both parties, with millions of civilians participating in this war in order to keep themselves and their country safe. Both women and children found jobs that replaced men while they fought in war. Women working in factories which specialized in the making of war products, and children being enlisted to sell war bonds to raise money for the war effort. They also planted victory gardens for soldiers who needed to eat, with both women and children supporting their homeland in the war. Many of these changes that came grew due to propaganda set around the support of the homeland, with the victory gardens and war bonds being the largest focuses. There were two important technological developments to this war, being trench warfare and naval warfare. Trench warfare allowed soldiers to have adequate cover during rapid gun firing, since trenches are deep ditches that were dug by soldiers. Although it provided strong defense, the offensive part of the war did not benefit from the trenches, since most sides stood their ground. Due to this, in order to advance onward, many technological advances were created, including tanks that were used to ride over the trenches, as they were built to go over uneven land, flamethrowers, which were used by the Germans as close combat offensive attack against the Allied powers, also giving the ability to move forward in the trenches, and poison gas, one of the last techniques used, being shot out into enemy territory in order to clear out that part of the trench. Naval warfare is war between the waves, with certain technology being used in order to get the advantage in the war at sea, providing great offensive tactics that benefited everyone greatly. An important piece of technology created for naval warfare were submarines, used to attack and sink enemy ships. This is known as unrestricted submarine warfare. The United States' involvement in this war also was due to the sinking of the Lusitania by this unrestricted warfare, a British ship that was used to transport resources undercover and innocent civilians. This was ultimately a negative turning point for Germans, since it brought more negative attention to their attacks. Many foreign powers were involved in this war since over 30 countries participated. Considering this, there were two main powers that were formed, the Allied powers and the Central powers. The Allied powers were formed due to the aggressive and growing power of Germany and the Central powers. The Central powers had formed due to the short-term cause of the assassination of Archduke Ferdinand and because of the long-term rising tensions as a result of a web of alliances, growing nationalism, and expansionism. Many times throughout war, multiple countries try to create peace. The armistice is one of the many examples of this attempt, and the largest one. It had been a success as it had been accepted by Germany, as they were facing a revolution in their country accompanied by a shortage of resources. The acceptance resulted in the end of the war between Germany and the Allied powers, and by extension, their allies. Germany had to pay war reparations, and they agreed to the loss of their territory by the Treaty of Versailles, as they had been blamed for the bulk of tragedies that occurred during World War I. Fritz Fischer, one of the most influential German historians, quotes, "Germany was responsible for World War I because of its aggressive pursuit of its Weltpolitik, which was its world politics, the aim to transform Germany into a global power through aggressive diplomacy, the acquisition of overseas colonies, and the development of a large navy." The League of Nations is another example of peacemaking, with it being an international organization that was created after World War I in order to resolve international disputes. This was considered a success of peacemaking since it would ensure no more international conflicts would occur, although this is arguable since World War II happened not too long after World War I. Many countries received certain territories and goods after the war, and it was split amongst them. After the war, many territorial changes occurred. Germany was divided between multiple allied countries. They were mainly divided from the United Kingdom and Africa. Another example of territorial changes is the collapse of the Russian Empire after World War I. It ultimately led to the creation of Poland, Finland, and the Baltics. The war also had major political impacts with the countries that participated in the war. The collapse of major empires such as the Austro-Hungarian and the Ottoman empires occurred. This happened as a result of losing in the war. Certain revolutionary movements arose from the end of the war as well, such as the Bolshevism in Russia. This revolution heavily encouraged the influence of communism. Major shifts also occurred in the global power dynamics, with the US coming out on top. The United States became number one as a result since they proved themselves as a strong military country. There were also many social, demographic, and economic changes that happened as a result of the war. With millions of men away from home, women decided to take responsibility over the production of goods by working in the factories to help support the US. In doing so, women gained tons of recognition for their hard work and even earned their right to vote in the year of 1918. Ideologically, there was a major shift in views that changed within certain countries, such as Germany and Italy, adopting a new view of fascism and Nazism.
Let's visit Thought Bubble and see how this all started. Archduke Franz Ferdinand Karl Ludwig Joseph Maria, wow, that's a bit much, was born the eldest son of Archduke Karl Ludwig, so it was no surprise that once Ludwig passed, his son took his place. On Sunday, 28, 1914, while visiting Sarajevo, Archduke Ferdinand and his wife were attacked by Ninjeko Kabrinovich, who threw a bomb at their car in hopes of killing them. This would ultimately fail and hit the car behind the Archduke. The Archduke and his wife would then insist on seeing those who have been injured by the bomb, and when the line of cars stalled, nearby Gavrilo Principi would take the chance and shoot the couple. Both would die before they could reach the hospital. The Archduke within minutes, and his wife, Sophia, Duchess of Honenberg, would die on her way to the hospital, orphaning their 3 children, Princess Sophia, Duke Maximilian, and Prince Ernest. Gabrinovich and Principi would be discovered to be part of the same secret military societies, known as the Black Hand.
Overall, World War I was a total war that created devastation for people all over the world. Millions of lives were lost. This video is an educational video of the tragedies that happened during World War I, the effects it had on the countries involved, and how certain events led to the beginning and the ending of the war.